Before I moved back to Lancaster in 2021, I was living in the Bay Area in California. I'm probably the only person named Amos Stoltzfus who's ever worked for a tech company in San Francisco. And there were a lot of things that I really loved about living in Northern California. It's one of the most beautiful parts of our country. But every day I would commute from Oakland into San Francisco on the Bay Area Rapid Transit train or the BART train. And the stop that I would get off at is the Civic Center station, which was next to the Tenderloin District, which is ground zero for San Francisco's housing crisis. And every day when I would walk from the station to my office, I would pass people who were in various states of crisis. And like many of the other tech workers in the Bay Area, I would look the other way. I moved to California to work for Nextdoor, the neighborhood app. And back then, I was naive enough to believe that technology could help us to build stronger communities. And when that dream fell apart, I moved back to Lancaster, in part because I wanted to switch careers. I was looking to do something that was more meaningful, and I had definitely given up on any hopes that tech would save us. I was fortunate soon after I moved back to be able to get a job working as a SOE director for Tenfold, the housing nonprofit here in Lancaster. And by that time, the housing crisis or the problems that I'd seen with California's housing crisis had reached Lancaster. And part of my job as a SOE director is to work in the Cabbage Hill neighborhood of Lancaster and really just to support neighbors and try to work together to solve problems as a neighborhood. And as we were seeing our shelter beds fill up, I was seeing more and more folks sleeping in Culleton Park. And this time, I was determined to not look the other way. And so strangely enough, we had more people staying in the park, but also the park was like cleaner than it ever had been before, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I started asking around, and a couple of people mentioned that I should meet a guy named Dave Costarella. And so I reached out to Dave, and he agreed to meet with me, and I met with him on a sunny afternoon at Tobias Frog, which is a place that he prefers to have meetings. And I don't know what exactly I was expecting him to look like, but he definitely did not look like a local expert on how to work with our unhoused neighbors. Dave has a long rat tail ponytail, which I didn't know anyone still had. He's usually wearing kind of like a tattered tank top and cut-off shorts, and he's a roofer by day. And so when I met him, he had just come straight from his job. And over a couple of beers, Dave told me about his story and how he had been helping homeless folks for over a decade in Lancaster, and he shared some of his secrets. And he told me that one of the reasons that the park was so clean was that he was paying folks who stayed there to clean the park, which I thought was pretty cool. And some of the lessons that Dave told me, the main thing that he said was, Amos, if you want to work with our unhoused neighbors, you got to get to know them. So I took his advice to heart, and we actually were planning to have a block party in Culleton Park a few days after that. And so I printed out some flyers, and I went around the park, and I introduced myself to the folks who were staying there, and I invited them to join our event, and I was surprised by how receptive they were and how excited they were to be invited. And on the day of our block party, a few of us showed up early, and a group of the unhoused folks who stay at the park came over and asked if they could help us set up, and they did. And we were able to have a beautiful neighborhood celebration together that included all of our neighbors. And after that, there was a group of us who live in the neighborhood, neighbors, volunteers, outreach workers, city staff, nonprofit service providers who started intentionally meeting every month with the goal of trying to figure out what we could do to support the folks who stay at our park and also try to make sure that it remains a place that's welcoming to all neighbors. And we've been able to have a fair amount of success together, helping people get into rehab, helping people get jobs, and if we're lucky, we can help people get housed. And the thing that has been most surprising to me is how enriched my life has become, because I no longer talk about the folks who stay at the park, I talk about my friends. And I wish I could say that we don't have anyone who needs to stay at Culleton anymore. I wish I could say that we have enough housing for all of our neighbors, but that is not the case. And the housing crisis that has gripped the country continues to grip our community. And it's easy, I think, to despair and to give up, but I have a lot of hope because I know that our community is strong. And there's definitely not an app for that. Thank you.